without further ado, I think I'm going to just introduce our keynote speaker. He traveled here all the way from the US. He is pioneer within the blockchain space. The absolute bleeding edge technology of blockchain. A new social media website called Steemit, based on a new blockchain called Steem. It's one of the most advanced blockchains out there. And he's come all the way here to talk to us about that. And I'm very grateful to have you as our guest, Ned. Please come up on stage. He will be talking to us about future cryptocurrencies and social media. Give a hand for Ned.
Hey everyone, couldn't be happier to be here in Oslo, Norway. This is my first time to this part of the world, and I have to say it's absolutely stunning. The yellow and the green trees, it's gorgeous. Big thanks to Manuel and his brother Christian for putting together this amazing event. The hackathon has been super productive. We've got hackers and programmers from all over Europe that have come to do some great work together. So thanks to everybody who's been a part of this. As Manuel mentioned, I'm in the blockchain space and the social media space, and that incorporates a lot of things, finance and content, all sorts of things. So as the CEO of Steemit.com, we're really thinking about cryptocurrencies and the future of finance. And I really like the words that Manuel has been using, CryptoFinance. I think it's a really great description of a lot of the tech to come over the next few years. So in my presentation, I want to just go over generally some of the ideas that we approached as we came up with the model for Steemit.com and some of the problems that we were looking at. Oops. So, cryptocurrencies, social networks, and the attention economy. It's all, a bunch of jargon, a bunch of new words. What does it all really mean? Well, to me, it kind of starts at a couple things. We look at a lot of the institutions and the industries around us. You can look at banks, you can look at schools, and these are institutions that have a specific purpose in our lives. And more recently, maybe in the last decade and a half, there's been this new institution, social media and the internet. And with that, there's been changes in the way that we interact with each other and speak with each other and message people and keep connections around the world. It's been a very, very interesting time for all of us. It's disrupted business after business along the way in the media industry and just in the way people do business day to day. But there's one business that has, despite all of the digitalization of commerce, has continued to operate much the same as it has for a very, very long time, and that is banking. I imagine we've brought in a few financial experts to this event, and I see some nodding heads out there. I'm sure you guys can agree somewhat that although we have mobile banking now and you can use PayPal and send money across the world, there's still a stagnancy, a slowness to the way things work, and banks are very big operations. So I got into Bitcoin in 2013. I had just gotten out of school. I had studied psychology and economics, and Bitcoin just really felt right to me. And I approached her and I said, will you be my girlfriend? And I literally have spent every night with Bitcoin ever since. And my business partner much the same happened to him, but in 2009. And he was actually one of the original guys. This is Daniel Larimer. He was one of the original guys to find Bitcoin, and he was, at the time, looking for his own digital currency solution. He was thinking, how can we empower people across the world? And he realized that the way to do that is by taking currency and creating it in a way where it has no owner, where it's a completely autonomous vehicle. And by chance, typing digital currency into Google, he found Bitcoin. And he ended up on the forum with all the other, well, I should say the other very few early adopters. And he ended up speaking with this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto. Some of you may know him as the creator, the anonymous creator of Bitcoin. So Dan and Satoshi had some back and forth, discussed a few things, and Dan was, very much dedicated to the development of currency. But in 2013, he had another project building exchange software into what's known as blockchain technology. This is technology that empowers digital currency like Bitcoin in a way where transactions and data become perfectly immutable. And that's tremendous, because what it means is now, for transactions to happen, you don't need to trust anyone. So Dan was responding to one of the key weaknesses in the Bitcoin space, and that's the exchange business. In Bitcoin, I don't know if you've ever heard, maybe, a Bitcoin exchange is hacked and $100 million disappears. Dan responded to that problem by building an exchange directly into the blockchain. That project was called BitShares, tremendous piece of work. And I approached him about halfway through last year. I said, there's tremendous technology here, but let's find the application that everybody can use. And after some discussions about maybe doing an insurance business or mutual aid business, we realized that to really empower a community, you needed a forum on the blockchain. So we developed essentially a social network on the blockchain where all communication is immutable and where people can transfer value to one another seamlessly, frictionlessly, and be rewarded for their participation in the network. So as we were coming up with that, we started to look at, how important it could be, and we started looking at the other models that exist today. And if we look at Facebook, if we look at Twitter and Instagram and Reddit, these are companies that operate on private databases. And as we spend our hours per day on our computers looking at these sites, we are paying them with our attention and our time and our creativity and our energy, and they're taking that and leveraging it on top of our private data to create profits for their shareholders. So maybe there's a couple hundred of us in this room today. Think about all the value that collectively we're giving these companies. So we thought blockchain might allow some of that value to come back to the users, to a group of people like us. We looked at Facebook and we noticed that it's also very strictly social. There's not a lot of value transfer there. In the last several years, Facebook has tried to institute payment methods and Facebook Pay and things like that, but it's been very, very difficult to pull off in a way that's meaningful to their users. And a lot of the reasons for that are current regulations and also the weaknesses of some of the payment structures out there on the internet that have come prior to blockchain. There's also a very low degree of transparency. Facebook keeps very much a walled garden of data. They have a wealth of information about who we are, what we like, what we do, and they only like to let certain types of individuals into their walled garden, maybe advertisers, and they say, well, here's a demographic of people that you can advertise to. And so we don't really know what they're doing with that data. Are they spying on us? Are they manipulating the data? Who knows? Blockchain represented an opportunity to change that, where you could, instead of having this private enclosed model, you could have public data. You could have a utility for all the people using that data and all the entrepreneurs and developers who wanted to access that wealth of data. And then we started to look at banking. We said, okay, well, if we're going to have a social media site merged with a financial site, a personal finance site, what are we up against? Well, we're not up against any hybrids, really, but if we think about banking as a competitor, banks really have no element of social. It's, retail banking, you put your money into this institution, you can take it out, you can transfer it. Transfers and wires take a certain number of days, there's fees, customer service is sometimes good, sometimes terrible. And in the news, we read about some of the events that have occurred. Some of them are regarding fraud and some other things that don't seem to be in our best interests. For instance, Wells Fargo in the United States recently was caught creating accounts for their customers unbeknownst to them. And they were then racking up fee after fee with these fraudulent transactions and then charging it to the user's other accounts without notifying them of really the bill. They were fined $190 million for that. No one was fired. Some people retired. But ultimately, there was very little transparency. There was fraud. It's just a big mess. So we're up against this institution of closed information. And so it brings us to a unique moment in time. We now have Bitcoin. We have other cryptocurrencies. We have these public databases. And we have millions and billions of people online looking at computers for hours and hours a day, spending their time also inputting their creativity and creating content. There's huge, huge amounts of value on the internet being funneled into these websites like Facebook and Twitter. And they're acting as middlemen. As we look into our screens, advertisers are coming to the platform and saying, okay, how can we monetize all this attention? So to really flip the model, I would suggest that there be a platform that finds the synergy between social networking and finance, that has complete transparency, where the websites themselves run as nonprofits, and any advertising revenue that comes in to monetize our attention then goes and is distributed to the bloggers and the users of the website, and perhaps even the holders of the cryptocurrency that underlies the network. So that was the model we were ready to approach, a very open version of social networking, completely integrated with finance. But we knew there would be challenges. Creating any business, especially an internet business, requires mass. There needs to be a network effect. And we've seen this very strongly with some other businesses. Usually it's the first to market that develops the strongest network effect. Although that's not always true. I think maybe you guys remember MySpace was the predecessor to Facebook and eventually supplanted completely. There were also going to be technical challenges. Not only did we need a lot of people, we were going to need to serve them in a way where their experience is seamless. Now, if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin is known as this first internet, this magical internet currency. But it actually takes, some of you might be surprised to know, it takes at least 10 minutes for any Bitcoin transaction to go through. And more often than not, transactions can take 40 minutes and even up to a day and a half. This is a network that has been plagued with speed and scalability issues. That's not to say that there aren't a lot of people, really smart people working on that. I do believe that those problems are being resolved. But we knew that if we were going to have a social network, which could have an order or several orders of magnitude more transactions and more demand, we were going to need some excellent technology. So thanks to a lot of the work that had been done in the previous few years on BitShares and some of the other open source projects in the space, we concocted an architecture that would allow us to create a blockchain database that supports all the content and all the transactions with tremendous scalability. We've tested into the tens of thousands of transactions per second by using a single threaded blockchain database known as Graphene. And the speed that this database runs at is industry leading with 3-second block times. So with all this in hand, we felt we had a pretty good shot to do social networking on a blockchain if anyone was going to do it. And we created Steemit. Steemit runs on this blockchain called Steem. The way we came up with this name, in English, you have the word esteem, like you have an esteemed author. The way Steem would work is it would be a cryptocurrency much like Bitcoin, but it would also have a budget that is allocated to the authors who are posting on the social network. So every day, there's a set and specific amount of Steem created and is allocated to the bloggers and the curators or voters of content on this network. So this was all an idea back in January. We turned it into a blockchain by the end of March of this year. And by July, we moved out of alpha and into a beta period where these payouts actually started happening. And in July, $1.2 million US dollars worth of Steem was distributed to the posters and the voters. And it was a really miraculous moment. Some of the people in this room were participating on the network at that time. It was really exciting to see, people pay their rent, pay down debt, buy their mother a washing machine. And as people started to realize that this network was working for them, confidence in the industry grew, and the cryptocurrency itself started to gain a lot in value. And as the value increased, more people came to the website and took interest. And since then, we've seen a very steady sign-up rate. We've had more than 100,000 accounts created on Steem. So we're really working towards that network effect, trying to be the first to penetrate this new market, this combined version of personal finance and social networking, where the value isn't siphoned out to the platform itself, but is distributed back to the user base. Along with the website that we built, steemit.com, and we built it on top of the Steem database. So there's kind of two layers. You have web applications, and you have the database behind it. There's Steemit as the first web application, and there are more than 95 other applications built on this database. And this hackathon that was going on the past few days was focused on building these new and compelling applications. Because now there's not just a network effect to create on steemit.com itself, but for the platform, for the database. Because we all share in the benefit of others gravitating towards Steem and using this cryptocurrency Steem. So just briefly, I have a link here to the website. I'll just quickly scroll through some things.
I have the site up there on that Chrome browser, if you want to show
Sure, sure, let's just do that.
Yeah. There.
Cool. So this is steemit.com. It's sort of the first iteration of this social network. You have posts. Several of these are describing the hackathon from the last few days. The top one is the live stream that's going on right now. But on the main page, you know, there's quite the collection of different types of content. This is an all-encompassing site. We're trying to build something that appeals to everyone. You know, this isn't like other. I guess, you know, this is the first sort of cryptocurrency project to appeal to all types of people. Prior to steemit.com coming out, I believe the best female to male ratio on any given project was about 10 to 90. And with Steemit, and we have the Google Analytics to prove this, it's about 50-50. We have the first cryptocurrency project to actually attract an even distribution of men and women, which is pretty cool. And so, yeah, this may just look like a regular social media site, but I want to point out below all these posts, you have these dollar signs, right? So you have essentially denominations of Steem tokens in US dollars here, and these authors are being paid directly by the network, essentially by a jury of their peers who control this budget of Steem. And, you know, at the end of the day, they're rewarded. So at the top, there's a $99 reward. Below that, $34. So it's real. And I can show you, we can go to, for instance, this person, Eric Vance Walton's wallet. So they have their page. Anyone who's been to Twitter knows, you know, you kind of have your feed, and you can access your comments and replies, and you can retweet. Well, here you can re-Steem. But there's a new button here you haven't seen on any other social media sites, the wallet. And the wallet is like your bank account. But the difference between this bank account and any other bank account is no one controls this but you. There's no banker behind it. There's no institution behind it. There's just the blockchain. And no one's running the blockchain, at least not a single entity. There's, you know, hundreds of people running nodes around the world to keep the blockchain operational and decentralized and secure. So there's no one to close down your account. It's completely in your control. You get to manage your Steem. There's a few other financial mechanisms in here. There's Steem, which is like Bitcoin. There's Steem Power. Anyone who's ever run a startup is familiar with sort of vesting equity. Steem Power is like vesting cryptocurrency that gives people a long-term incentive to participate in the network and gives them influence over content. The more Steem Power they have, the more they get to sort of upvote posts and that sort of thing. And then there are Steem dollars. One of the economic challenges of Bitcoin has always been volatility. And although Bitcoin has been very successful as a speculative instrument, its efforts to integrate with merchants have also been successful. But the issue is that merchants are accepting Bitcoin and then cashing out immediately to some other asset that they find to be more stable, more holdable. The Steem dollar is essentially like Bitcoin or Steem, but pegged to the US dollar. And that makes it easier to hold on to. It makes it easier to feel comfortable receiving from these posts and then, you know, not taking it right to a market and selling. So there's quite a few kind of you know, things to learn here, of course, and you know, some interesting financial mechanisms. But you know, at the end of the day, it's a pretty easy concept. It's just social media, where as you participate, you're earning for your participation. You're no longer just giving away your value for free. And what I'd like to close with is the idea that these blockchains are creating systems where, as a group of people, we begin to work together more. And you know, just like we see with communities of ants who work together to build bridges across obstacles. We are doing the same thing on Steam as we bring value for each other and build this network together. Thank you very much. Oh, I guess I should do a Q&A, or should I?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, sure.
I guess there might be some questions in the audience. We still have some time. Do you want to just point at the?
Sure.
You'll take control of this.
Here's one.
Yeah. So I'm wondering. So you have your own currency for this system, and then obviously you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, and I assume you would argue that so it's better that and you just touched upon it, but that it's better to have like your own currency for your system. But in more general terms, how would you argue, or like how do you look at like having one general currency for all purposes versus having specific currencies for specific systems?
Sure.
For instance, addressing yours network, which is going to use Bitcoin.
Sure. So the question is, you created this system with its own currency. So what was the motivation behind that? When we began, we looked at Bitcoin, we looked at Ethereum, and we said, can we do this on these platforms? Because if you can leverage existing technology, save yourself the time. You don't need to say, it's not built here, so I won't use it. I have always been a Bitcoiner. I've always been interested in the Bitcoin 2.0 projects. We were facing a number of challenges in doing this. Some of them were technical. If you think about the user experience that's demanded for Facebook and Twitter and all these real-world applications, they need to react in real time. So every action that you take regarding content here is a transaction. And if you're upvoting and you have to wait 10 minutes, or in Ethereum's case, 10 seconds, that's quite a lag. And the risk of having your actions not enter into the blocks, which are recording these transactions, was too great. So from a technical perspective, we needed a blockchain that could actually handle these user actions. Beyond that, we realized that the content itself has to sit in the blockchain, has to be immutably and inextricably linked to the accounts, so that there can be auditability of the budget of Steam that is distributed to all the different users. So ultimately what we came to is an application-specific blockchain. Bitcoin's another example of that. It's very specific in what it does. It does transfer of value. Ethereum is this very general purpose blockchain. And there have been some initiatives to perhaps approach problems like these as well, but we were able to get to market much faster by focusing on this specific problem and building a specific solution. Yours Network is also a great project. It will be using Bitcoin, but it will be missing some of the economic aspects and the immutable content aspects of this system. They'll be running on a centralized database, much like Reddit or Twitter, or at least that's to my knowledge. I can't say that I'm completely up to date on the project. And on the economic side, they're beholden to all the economics of Bitcoin. There are new economics here that reward people specifically for posting and voting. They don't need to buy anything, they just need to show up and do what they were already doing on Twitter and Facebook or whatever. So yeah, in a nutshell, it's economic and technological problems that caused us to build this application-specific blockchain. In the back.
You said that your currency is pegged to the US dollar.
A portion of it is.
By doing so, aren't you putting too much trust into fiat currencies?
That's a great question. So the smart contract mechanism that creates the Steam dollar, and the Steam dollar is just one sort of financial mechanism on this chain. The mechanism that creates it is a decentralized sort of price feed mechanism. There's no hard pegging the way countries, peg to another country's currency. It's all done through price feeds and market pegging. which is a somewhat new concept and it's sort of come about with the advent of crypto. But we pegged it to the US dollar. So why did we do that? The US dollar is quite a well-known medium of exchange. If you go to Argentina, to the black markets, there can be a 10% premium on dollars. So we essentially looked for the asset that would help this application become mainstream, that would help reduce the volatility problem. Could there be issues with the dollar in the future? Some would argue, yes, but for now, it represents one of the most understandable and palatable assets that we could have pegged to.
If it will be conflict situation, what kind of juridical security will stay behind this system?
So how is the system?
How you will decide with conflict situation? It can be if somebody pay and not satisfied, what you will do? What kind of what kind of juridical system will stay behind?
What kind of security backs the system? Okay, so this comes down to the nature of blockchain. Blockchain came about because there had been no prior systems that allowed sort of transfer of value across the internet without a problem known as the double spend problem, which meant that someone sending money to someone else could then send that same money to another party, and both parties would think they received the money, although in the end, one of them won't receive it. So blockchain solved that problem by guaranteeing that value could only be sent once. I'm not sure if you had another part of your question there.
It's
But
exactly this you start answer, but it's very difficult to understand. If somebody would like to buy something, and first, вем сказал детали, it's procedure question, how to it will go. It's not so easy.
yeah, it is. It's a complex. It's a complex subject matter, the way these databases work. That's why I sort of went through it quickly, but when I presented cryptocurrency and blockchain, I referred to it as magical internet money because it's such a complex topic that to really understand it takes quite a bit of study. So I would recommend to anyone who really wants to understand cryptocurrency or blockchain to go out there to Google and type in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and spend some time really learning it. Otherwise, it's a system that you'll just need to trust.
Okay, so that's going to be the last question.
Okay, so last question here. You got it.
Since it's growing as a social network, and as it's growing, I guess you'll learn something about social behavior, and you might want to change how it works. Can you do that, and how do you do that in a distributed network?
There are challenges in doing that. Yes, it's sort of a running experiment, and there are some parts of the experiment that are very difficult to change, especially when you're talking about property that people own, right? So we really refrain from changing anything to do with emission rates of steam or anything to do with the financial aspects of it, because we really can't. The way that changes come about is all the steam holders are voters in the network. And if, let's say, everyone were to agree that a change needed to be made, someone would write some new software that's very much like the old software, the old blockchain, but with the necessary improvements inside of it. They would put it out there in the open, and then you have these block producers, these witnesses or miners, who see the new software, and they choose to opt in to the new software. And if they all do that, then the entire group of steam holders moves to this new, improved network. So, yeah, it's a bit complicated, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
great.
Thank you very much, Ned. It was a great, inspiring